On September 27, 2024, the Israeli military dropped a payload of GBU-39 bunker-penetrating bombs on an underground war room in Dahye, Lebanon. The strike decapitated a movement, but the man who died 40 meters underground was the final product of decades-long manufacturing process, one that began long before the first bunker buster was designed. In 1975, a 15-year-old named Hasan Al-Husseini fled his village in southern Lebanon. A killing attributed to his father or older brother had left the family with a blood stigma, effectively severing their ties to their home community. They settled in Burj Hammoud, a largely Christian neighborhood on the eastern outskirts of Beirut. There, the family lived in Camp Sharshab, an impoverished settlement for displaced families. Hassan was raised in total isolation, categorized in records as threatened with death and lacking any local group to protect him. This total absence of national or communal support left him entirely dependent on the foreign structures that would eventually discover him. By his early 20s, Hassan had moved to Baalbek. He worked as a mail carrier for Voice of the Oppressed Radio, founded by the first Iranian intelligence contacts in Lebanon. His life changed when he was identified by Ahmad Vahidi. Vahidi was an IRGC talent scout, tasked with finding Lebanese candidates who could execute Tehran's regional strategy. Vahidi's report to Tehran was specific. He had found a candidate with no national loyalty and no community to answer to. This ensured the recruit would be completely reliant on the Iranian chain of command for his status and survival. This requirement for absolute loyalty was strictly enforced. Early Hezbollah leaders like Subhi al-Tufaili and Sheikh Qadr Talis were eventually expelled or executed because they attempted to weigh Lebanese national interests against direct orders from Iran. This organizational chart shows how Lebanese proxy groups are positioned as direct subordinates to the Iranian Supreme National Security Council. Hassan was the ideal candidate to occupy the terminal point of this hierarchy. To prepare him for leadership, Iranian handlers orchestrated a total identity overhaul. They retired Hasan Al-Husseini and introduced a public alias, Nasrallah, the victory of God. They then attached the Sayyid honorific, claiming he was a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. The black turban served as the visual proof of this lineage, designed to trigger instant religious reverence within the Shia community. However, forensic documentation tells a different story. Official Lebanese civil registries do not contain the title. His father's death certificate lacks the prefix, and his own sons were never referred to as Sayyid in neutral records. When the lineage was questioned, the leadership's response was a uniform refusal to submit to DNA testing. Hassan Nasrallah, Ali Khamenei, and Ruhollah Khomeini all followed the same pattern of genealogical secrecy to protect the theological credentials of their movement. His elevation was finalized in 1992 after the assassination of his predecessor, Abbas al-Musawi. Reports from former insiders suggest Iranian operatives facilitated the intelligence leak that allowed Israel to target Musawi, clearing the path for their preferred proxy. Within a community conditioned for centuries to respect the Prophet's family, this manufactured title worked as a social barrier. It effectively categorized political opposition to Nasrallah as a form of religious disrespect. Nasrallah used his position to eliminate local rivals. During the late 1980s War of the Iqlim, he ordered the killing of an estimated 3,000 Lebanese Shia loyal to the Amal movement. This intra-Shia conflict was so severe, Amal leader Nabi Berri stated the Iranian party killed more Lebanese Shia than Israel had. In Syria, his forces functioned as the demographic engineering arm of the Iranian state. They executed Sunnis in Qusair, enforced starvation sieges in Madaya, and directly assisted Assad's artillery in the Ghouta sarin gas attacks. Intelligence from his inner circle reveals that, in private, Nasrallah admitted his true goal was the declaration of a Safavid state in Lebanon. He confessed to harboring a far greater hatred for his Sunni neighbors than for the Israelis. By 2009, his behavior began to show signs of intense paranoia, including a public refusal to eat wedding sweets. Israeli intelligence, through an officer codenamed Major G, successfully penetrated his son-in-law's 19-man bodyguard unit. Analysts draw a parallel to the psychological management of Adolf Hitler. Intelligence reports suggest operatives introduced psychoactive substances into his food supply to induce a state of megalomania, ensuring he remained overconfident and above ground. By the 2019 phase of his career, his public speeches were defined by grandiose, megalomaniacal declarations. The man who portrayed himself as a divine warrior was, according to these intelligence files, a heavily manipulated asset. This dynamic shifted after October 7, 2023. Hezbollah's activation of the Northern Front was an Iranian directive intended to distract global intelligence from Tehran's nuclear program, which was rapidly advancing during the regional chaos. A generation of Lebanese Shia were sent to the border as expendable tactical assets. Their deaths provided the necessary smokescreen to buy time for the operation of Iranian nuclear centrifuges. The strategy collapsed in September 2024. Israel decapitated the network's command structure through a massive supply chain breach, detonating thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies. Nasrallah retreated into a state of total psychological breakdown. Trapped in a bunker, he spent his final days terrified of electronic devices and refusing all contact with his own family. As the strategic landscape changed, Iranian operatives appeared to sacrifice their proxy. While the Iranian state encouraged his attendance at high-level meetings, intelligence suggests they simultaneously facilitated the tracking that allowed the bunker busters to find him. Lebanon's death certificate updated voter rolls. It records him as Hassan Nasrallah, no Saeed title for him or his father, noting no forensic doctor attended. This official record marks the end of a long-term intelligence operation. The man who was presented to the world as a divine icon was registered by his own state as a common citizen, leaving the people of Lebanon to sort through the ruins.